It's Thursday, the 4th of July, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1, the superannuation funds are announcing their performance over the last financial year, and some of the biggest funds aren't actually at the top of the rankings.
According to Chant West, the median return for the last financial year is forecast to be 9% plus, so that's a benchmark. Aussie Super came out yesterday. It's the country's biggest super fund. It delivered an 8.5% return in its balanced option, which is the default option for new members. The result reflects the decision to become defensive around equities early in the financial year, meaning the fund missed some of the run on US tech stocks, particularly Nvidia. Still a pretty good return, though, and well above the fund's goal of CPI plus 4%. The Australian Retirement Trust said its My Super option, which is the default fund, returned 11.3%. Hester's My Super option returned 9.1%. No doubt, super funds have done very well in the 2024 financial year. Of course, it's a $3.9 trillion industry, second largest asset class behind property. The amount being contributed by us all also increased on July 1 from 11 to 11.5%. Big business, and all of us are affected by it.
Yeah, certainly, Sean. Now, that's what happened last year. What about this year? Can the super funds repeat the performance, I suppose, not just of last year, but also the year before that, where the median fund then came in around 9% as well?
Let's hope so. That would be a very good effort. In Aussie Super's case, Chief Investment Officer Mark Delaney said he realised that equity markets weren't going to tumble late last year and started buying stocks. He's now slightly overweight equities. But he told the AFR that the last 2 years have been so good, something has to give. UniSuper's Chief Investment Officer, John Pearce, told the Fin that tech stocks in the Commonwealth Bank are overvalued, but he conceded it's tough to call, even harder for long-term investors to actually sell because they'll eventually have to buy back in. His quote is, "You are going to have to live with overvalued assets." I think the best way to sum it up is that the chief investment officers are entering the new financial year with some trepidation.
Yes. Sean, story number 2. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has told Parliament that he expects Fatima Payman to quit the Labor Party in coming days.
Amid expectations, the rebel senator will move to the crossbench with the backing of Muslim groups. Mr Albanese said the plan had been in train for more than a month. Senator Payman crossed the floor last week to support a Greens motion to recognise the state of Palestine. That and her subsequent refusal to abide by party rules resulted in her indefinite suspension from the caucus. Mr Albanese has met with Senator Payman on 2 separate occasions to discuss her future in the Labor Party. He has repeatedly maintained that he hoped she would return to caucus.
Story number 3, retail sales jumped 0.6% in May, which sounds pretty good, but most of it was on the back of discounting by retailers.
Shoppers took advantage of early end of financial year promotions and sales, according to the Bureau of Statistics, and retailers continue to rely on discounting and sales events to encourage shoppers to spend. While seasonally adjusted spending rose, underlying spending was stagnant. Compared to a year ago, the trend is up only 1.5%. Retailers are working really hard to boost sales at the moment, and we know that from the spate of companies who have warned shareholders about soft turnover. AMP's chief economist Shane Oliver yesterday said we're in the midst of the worst retail recession we've seen in the history of the data, both in terms of length and magnitude. Just going to be very interesting, though, to see what happens when the stage 3 tax cuts kick in.
Story number 4, turning to the US for this one, Sean. Joe Biden is under increasing pressure to drop out of the presidential race after a Democratic congressman from Texas called on him to withdraw, and state governors sought a White House meeting to discuss his candidacy. Sean, there's a lot happening for Joe Biden.
Yes, the Texas congressman is a guy called Lloyd Doggett. He became the first person from the president's own party to publicly call for Mr. Biden to step down, saying too much is at stake to risk a Donald Trump victory in November's election. A Democratic congressman from Maine later said he had no confidence in Biden's ability to win the election, while another from Washington state said she thought Biden's performance in last week's presidential debate had cost him the election. The concern among Democrats, including state governors, who are apparently gathering in Washington, D.C., is Mr. Biden's age and fitness. The Supreme Court decision this week, which gives the president legal immunity when acting in an official capacity, has acted as a bit of a rallying call for Democrats who are fearful that Donald Trump, if elected, will abuse that right. Joe Biden said his performance last week reflected his travel schedule ahead of the debate, though he did actually spend the week immediately before last Thursday at Camp David preparing. Don't know where that one comes from.
Last one. Story number 5. Google's greenhouse gas emissions have surged 48% in the past 5 years due to the expansion of its data centers that underpin artificial intelligence systems.
The tech giant's commitment to get to net zero by 2030 is now in doubt, and the dilemma highlights a less beneficial consequence of the growth of cloud computing and artificial intelligence, i.e. the huge demand for power. Google's pollution amounted to 14.3 million tonnes of carbon equivalent in 2023. That's up 48% from its 2019 baseline, 13% from the previous year. According to a report in the Financial Times, the tech giant said the future environmental impact of AI is complex and difficult to predict. The company's now calling its 2030 target extremely ambitious, but it does say there are tremendous opportunity for climate solutions that are enabled by AI.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 4th of July, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed, wherever you listen to podcasts. And check out our sister podcast as well, How Do They Afford That? This week's episode is all about preparing for a potential rate hike, which may be coming as soon as August. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.